So, good morning or good afternoon, should I say, to everyone joining us today. So we're live. Welcome to the sixth edition of the Future Made Clear live Q&A. My name is Adeline Farrelly, and I'm Secretary General of FEVE, which is representing the glass packaging producers serving the food and beverage sector, the perfumery, cosmetics, and pharma sectors in Europe. This is the sixth in a series, and it's a whole series of conversations that we want to have with the value chain and to have the opportunity to give and share insights from the glass packaging sector and all the different interests that unite us all together. So I hope that you will be, for those of you joining us online, that you will join us also for future episodes like this one. So I'd like to start first by introducing our great panel that we have today. So I'm going to start with Ulrich. So Ulrich Radem is Director General of Spirits Europe, and Spirits Europe represents the Europe's large and small distilleries. And prior to joining Spirits Europe, he was Secretary General of the Agricultural Machinery Industry Association, and also worked previously before that for 9 years for Hill and Knowlton. Um,
Thank you.
Ulrich is a German national, and you hold a PhD and MPhil in history and social and political sciences from Cambridge University. So welcome, Ulrich. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Welcome. Hello.
Michelle. Michelle Gibbons is Director General of AIM, which is representing the European Brands Association, and she's been there since January 2018. She's responsible for the representation of brands across a wide range of issues. And AIM members comprise 20 national associations across Europe, as well as 50 corporate companies, and in total representing 2,500 companies, manufacturing brands. And these brands are world renowned. They're all household names, national icons, and local champions. Michelle is Irish and has been based in Brussels for the last 25 years, working with businesses in the consumer goods sector, and has served on the board of the American Chamber of Commerce in the EU, and in a personal capacity supports the Dublin-based NGO Women for Election, which aims to have a more balanced representation of women in Irish politics. And as an Irish woman myself, fully support that objective. Welcome, Michelle.
Thanks, Adeline. It's very good to be with you today.
Ellie Papiernik, thank you, Ellie, for being with us today. You are a graduate of the École nationale supérieure de création industrielle. So that's the top school for industrial design in France. Ellie is design director of Cent Degrés, which is the international brand intelligence design and architecture firm that he co-founded in Paris in 1988. Cent Degrés is actually a full-service creative house aimed at building and boosting brands. So welcome to join us today, Ellie.
Thank you, Adeline. Thank you. I'm very happy to be with you.
So I just would like to ask our audience to, if you have any questions to the panel, please put them online. We'll try to answer them either bilaterally or at the end of this session if we have a bit more time. So again, thanks to all of you for being here with us. This is a very special year, 2022, because it is the International Year of Glass. The United Nations have designated this year the International Year of Glass. So we're doing a whole load of celebrations along this year to celebrate the material in all its applications, including packaging. So on packaging, I don't need to tell you, but packaging serves many functions. It's about getting a product from A to B, but it's also about the sustainability of doing that in a way which protects the environment. It's also about providing convenience to consumers, and it's obviously about protecting the product itself, protecting its shelf life. But it also has a major role in branding and the consumer experience. And it is also the very first contact that a consumer has with a brand or a product on the shelves. And we often say, don't judge a book by its cover, but actually that's exactly what you do when you're buying stuff. And when it comes to packaging, packaging tells the story of the value of the product that's inside the packaging. And it's really the primus, we call it the primus inter pares, the best salesperson of the brand on the shelf. So today we're examining this role for packaging. And at FEVI, we have actually worked with the University of Parma um, on a curation of all the existing research that is available that talks about the importance of brand differentiation and the supportive role that packaging provides to a product's enhancement. We'll share that study, by the way, with everybody online, all our audience today, and um, that will be you'll have a preview of that study. It'll be um, sent to you directly after this episode. So let's get started. Michelle, ladies first. I will start with you. Um, you're a Director General of the European Brands Association. Um, the question I have for you is, what is a brand? Actually, let's just start with that. What does it mean today being a brand, and why do brands matter?
Okay, so thanks, Adeline, and thank you to Feva as well for spearheading this really important conversation on this topic, as brand differentiation and why it matters for packaging. So, as you say, I'll talk first about a brand, the term brand, and what it is, and why it matters, because in fact, brands mean different things to different people. So to some people, it's a logo or it's a corporate identity or it's a name. To others, it's a trademark or a trust mark, a guarantee of consistent quality. And to a brand owner, it's actually the most valuable and yet intangible business asset that we have. But I'm going to take this maybe from the perspective of you as an individual rather than just a company as such, because it is actually it's essentially kind of all or the sum of the knowledge, the feelings for a product or a service or a company or an organization that you have. And that's through that knowledge and that sum of feelings, that's how you are exercising your choice, your preference. So over time, a product or a service for you in an individual's mind, it's familiar, it's reassuring, it's recognizable, and it's unique, and it inspires trust. And that, in other words, is a strong brand. And strong brands, they grow as a result of continuous care by brand owners. We're looking at what people want, what you're wanting, what your needs are. There's a great emphasis on consistency of quality of the delivery to you of that product and what you to meet your expectations, and a lot of research and development, continuous research and development, to make sure that we're also anticipating as well future needs. Because we need to stay one step ahead, of course, because there's great competition in the brands world, which is healthy, very, very good, and it's continuous, and that innovation can be small, it can be big, but that's part of successful brand building as well. And brands that have been around for, new brands which are launched, or brands that have been around for many, many years, decades or even centuries. So it's creativity. Brands, it's engaging, it's appealing to you, depending on what your needs, your values are. And that's why it's difficult to say, okay, this is the definition of a brand, because it is very personal as well. It's about what you're experiencing and what you're looking for and your values, and how that follows through with that product or service. It's a reputational asset for us as brand owners. And I use that reputation very deliberately, that word, because, it's extremely important to us. It is earned through our innovations, through what we are delivering to you as the consumer. And that can be any kind of exceptional innovation, like we're looking at augmented reality now, and how I can test, hair colors through augmented reality. That's innovation. Or the functional delivery of the brand. This detergent is fantastic at getting rugby stains on the rugby shirts, for example. So that's earned through trust, and by meeting a need consistently, by being better than the alternatives, and that inspires your your loyalty to the brand, which is, of course, extremely important from the brand owner's point of view. And that trust is earned, that reputation is earned, and therefore it is cared for meticulously, because, of course, reputation can be lost in seconds. So that's why brands matter, and they matter. They're a trust mark for you, for consumers. We're great at branding in Europe. We excel. We're leaders. We have Guinness, we have Chanel, we have BMW, Champagne. There are so many, and Europe really has leadership when it comes to iconic brands.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, what you're saying is that an awful lot of effort goes into building up a brand, to get loyalty among consumers, and to build up that sort of reputational asset, as you call it. And so it's quite important to have differentiation, brand differentiation. And crucial to that is the brand identity and the ways that the brands then differentiate from other brands, especially on the shelf. And that is often told through the packaging. So I've a specific packaging question. Surprise, surprise to you. Packaging is, in fact, the brand's clothes. It's you dress your product, so to speak. So Coca-Cola bottle, for example, is one of the most famous examples. Would you agree that iconic packaging designs really help craft a brand identity?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as you say, the clothes as such, the packaging it's the first contact with the consumers, particularly on the shelf, that they have with the brand, and it tells the brand story. And it makes it, instantaneously recognizable, as you say, maybe the Coke bottle, but all different kinds of designs. And I was reading in the University of Parma study that you guys have pulled together. There's a quote from Underwood et al. There, the study that they did in 2001, and he says there's a growing role for product packaging as a brand communications vehicle. He said that 21 years ago in 2001, and that is, I would say, even more relevant. That observation is probably even more relevant today than ever before, because the essence of the brand is wrapped up in the packaging, the quality values, the consistent delivery, and of course it's very different. It's fantastic. We're lucky to have so much differentiation, and what appeals to you with Chanel number 5, the minimalist elegance, would be different to the Jean Paul Gaultier, which is much more decorative, for example. But it's a different appeal to different consumers. And that brand identity, is intrinsic to the shopper experience as well. And it's not just for like high-end luxury goods, but your everyday products, brands that you are buying in store, the color, the shape. That's critical. We see research that shows that consumers, on your weekly shop basis, for example, you're not reading more than 8 words. You're going in and you're making split-second decisions when you're in the store and doing that, picking up what and you're picking it up through the brand, through the design, through the color, through the shape. All of these attributes matter in terms of when you're taking that decision. So it's part of the process, and it also, makes it a bit livelier, and it enlivens the shopper experience as such. I mean, it would be fairly boring if we were going in and everything was in one same standard white package, for example. And it would also put a lot more work on you, Adeline, because then you'd have to be going into your hair looking for your shampoo that you like for your hair, and you're going to have to work it out, and actually don't usually, because you go to your brand that works for you. So that's why it is very important in terms of the story, or that message that it is saying, that it is providing to you. And obviously, you mentioned it already, the usage, the consumer usage of the packaging is really important. In food, we have resealable packs, for example, or in the detergents world, for example, you have child safety locks that are on the packaging, and those consumer insights are all given. That's what drives the innovation in the packaging as well. So design is intrinsic; it's an intrinsic part of what we do in the brand.
So I think that Michelle, I think that gives a good sort of segue to Ellie. Design of packaging is intrinsic to the brand. And can you tell us just about Sondegray? And it's one of the best known branding agencies, working for famous names like Cartier, the famous European brands, Cartier, Hermes, Paco Rabanne, Kiko, Martell, cognacs, Champagne, Michelle mentioned, Veuve Clicquot, why is it important to build a brand, and how does packaging play a role?
Thank you for asking me this question. You know, my passion is on brands. As you know, I'm design on glass, by the way, but also on brands. You know, brands are not a theoretical, a marketing concept. We are working. We are in a way thinkers and doers. We work on brand intelligence, but also on the design part, which is very tangible. I'm very much in line with everything Michel said. I would say, you know, you can't. It's difficult to say why is a brand useful, because actually brands have always departed from the vision of a very talented person, or several person, by the way, and these people had a vision. If you take Vuitton, you know, Louis Vuitton had a very innovative vision of how do you transport things in the 19th century, where yeah, trains are coming and people are beginning to go abroad, etc. Same for Chanel. I mean, why did Chanel become famous? Because she had a very strong vision about femininity. It's not only about fashion and then about fragrance, etc. She had a very strong vision about femininity. And if you look at new brands, because let's say Chanel, Clicquot also, you see this just a champagne with a yellow color, but actually the founder of Clicquot was a widow. She was a widow at 2021. She was the first French woman entrepreneur in the wine business, probably in the business, by the way. She had an incredible character. And the reason why she became, and the brand became famous, is because of this incredible energy. And today, you know, if you look at new brands, let's say, you know, Off-White, Virgil Abloh, the poor man who died, he also had an incredible vision, a new vision of fashion. What I mean by all this is at the beginning of brand, there is a very strong vision. And if you look at what are the successful brands, it's the brands who, like a person, who have like a commitment, a meaning, and then a desirability that is originally based on these commitments. So in a way, I would say that brands are the soul of consumption. Of course, you buy product, you use product, etc. But the brand are the soul of this consumption. But about packaging, as Michel said very clearly, packaging is one of the first born, because you know I very often speak about meaning and style. Meaning is about a brand and about a product, the same. And by the way, most successful brands have departed with a successful product, and this is true in for Vuitton with their trunk. This trunk with such a specific shape and features and etc. in the 19th century. So it's always departing from a product, and this product, of course, is meant to be a desirable product, but also an ambassador of the brand. So once the brand has a very clear commitment, an idea, a vision, what's the way to express it? As you said, I mean, you can't explain everything of a brand with a text. So we talk a lot about non-verbal communication. And finally, the non-verbal communication is the expression of the brand, whether it's the brand color, the brand logo type, the brand packaging, the retail, as you said, Michel, the experience, the retail experience. All these elements are part of what makes the brand desirable, but also it's part of what makes the expression of the brand. These are ambassadors element. So apart from being a packaging, a protective element, an ergonomic element, the first thing is packaging is one of the first ambassadors of the brand.
Thank you, Ellie. I love I was taking down some of the words that you're using. Non-verbal communication. I think that's a very good, nice way to explain what packaging can do. But as brand ambassadors, so I would like to bring in Ulrich because obviously you're representing the spirit sector, the large and small distilleries across Europe, large and small companies, and all of them producing in Europe, and really the ambassador for trade in the world, because the spirit sector it really exports a huge amount of products, generates quite a lot of wealth for Europe. It's one of Europe's big trade success stories. So, how important is branding for the spirit sector? And maybe keeping in mind, what does brand recognition mean for particularly the products that are covered by geographic indications?
Thank you. Brands are of fundamental importance in the spirit sector, and I think that's echoing of what the previous speakers have already mentioned. I think it's because of three fundamental elements of how the sector functions, and one is diversity, two is really the premium aspirational nature, and three, the holistic consumer experience that Ali mentioned as well. First, diversity. We have thousands of products in spirits. We have many micro distillers in Europe. We have new products coming every week. But of course, we have a core. We have a real core-centric circle that cannot be missed in any proper bar around the world. And that circle of sort of say global top products is very much brand defined. It's also category defined. I think any reputable bar in the world needs to have some scotch, some Irish whiskey, some bourbon, some tequila, some cognac, and some gins. So we do have some liqueurs, but so we do have these global categories. But within these categories, of course, certain brands stand out, and I think the commercial aspiration of many producers is to really join these ranks of the global top brands, and they serve as a navigator for consumers. I mean, you really with all these thousands of products, consumers very much know what they're going for. They want to see, they trust the brand, and it serves as an orientation in this jungle of products. So branding is hugely important for the global top brands, but of course also for the smaller ones who come into the market. Some also consciously wanting to stand out and differentiate themselves from these top brands, and having a spirit of craft and independence. It's very much the premium, the aspirational nature. Spirits are a high added value product, and I think the brands themselves play on this very, very clearly, and the categories. So within the brands, you have different editions. So you have, for instance, red label, black label, blue and green label in certain whiskey brand. You have in cognacs, you have VS, VSOP, XO, XXO. So the branding of these products evolves together with the aspirational and premium nature of the product. And finally, it's very much the experience. And you mentioned geographical indications. Most spirit products really relate to the place that they're being made. That is, for Scotch, it's Scotland. For Irish whiskey, it's Ireland. They reflect the agricultural realities. They reflect the people, the land. The taste reflects it very much links the consumer to a certain place in the world. And it goes far beyond, and that's the holistic experience. It's linked usually to a philosophy of life, a philosophy of sustainability, and that's all woven into the brand. And when you purchase or enjoy the product, the consumer very much knows, with thanks to the branding, not only what the taste profile is, and has this orientation in this hugely diverse category, but also really links with a people, with a region, and with a philosophy behind the product. And yeah, in short, for that you need strong brands and convincing brands to make sure the consumer can navigate the landscape in spirits easily, and also in a transparent and convincing way.
And you mentioned the jungle of products, to try to stand out in the jungle of products. I think that's absolutely clear. By the way, I have all the products, the spirits products behind me on display. But I mean, you can see the spirit sector is known for its iconographic packaging for sure. And can you just say a bit about how that packaging adds value to the spirit sector? And you were alluding also to that consumer connection earlier as well. Could you just tell us a bit about that?
Sure, and I think it's just falls in natural line with the branding. The packaging is part and parcel of a successful branding strategy, and also this recognition value. And in the case of spirits, it is very much surprise. It's very much glass packaging. I think that's a perfect fit, a natural fit for spirits, because of a variety of reasons. But in Europe, for instance, 92% of spirits are produced in glass bottles, and in the glass bottles, again, the packaging very much serves, as was said also previously, as the clothing, as the first point of contact, the recognition value. And you already start by the different categories. I mean, Scotch whiskey glass bottles tend to look different to gin bottles. Gin usually clear, transparent glass. You want to see the liquid. In the liqueurs, you often have green glass and the darker liquid. So and then on top comes the iconic packaging. You have different shapes and forms, and sometimes, yeah, the packaging of course speaks itself. If you see this one, that is clearly a pear shaped bottle for a pear spirit, but you also have iconic bottling then, and constant innovation going on, that also brands go consciously a different way. So in gin, we usually have transparent bottles, but then a recent addition to the Bryn portfolio. I'm not going to say the brand, but it's a very recognizable brand. They use the
Yes.
old pharmacist the brown bottle, and also the inventor said himself, he chose consciously a small bottle, 500 milliliter, because that made sure it's always on the front line in the bar. So it had to be on the front. You can't hide it in the back. So different shapes. You want to get this nice picture in the bars, in your drink cabinet at home. You want to see this diversity, and it guides you through it. And of course, again, what I mentioned before, premiumizing, the aspirational aspect is very much reflected in the glass packaging. So the more the different range of products, the more premium products, of course, also reflect the premium liquid. While of course, I mean, the liquid is the real gift, we would say to the consumer, but that must be coherent with the packaging. And of course, a premium spirit needs a premium package, and it must, again, the final aspect I mentioned before, it must fit to the philosophy of the brand. And their sustainability is of course an increasingly important element in the branding, in the packaging, and that's where we also, as spirit sector, do a lot of efforts in partnership with the industry, of course, and everyone along the value chain, to make sure that you can do different things, whether it's recycled content increase, whether you can do lightweighting, and other elements or renewable energy use. So we're all on a pathway there to integrate sustainability elements into the glass packaging that also fits the very much the product in question. For instance, our Scotch whisky members did a special bottle for COP26 in Glasgow last November that really much ticked all the boxes of sustainability. It shows there's a lot of things already possible, and we're gradually working to integrate. I think everyone in the industry is working to integrate these elements into the packaging realities, but it must evolve together with a product, with a brand story and brand philosophy. So it's an open innovation process, and we're seeing a lot of things moving on that front at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's why just moving to sales, because packaging also has to be the salesperson of the packaging. So it has to look nice, it has to meet all those sustainability criteria as well, but it also has to help the product to sell. And I know that there's a recent study in France that in the wine sector, glass can create more value, and especially when compared to bag and box. So the study shows that glass bottles come out on top on a number of buying criteria. So consumers will opt for glass packed wine, driven for quality reasons, actually, and also just the pleasure of sharing a drink and or offering a gift. And they choose the glass bottle format. We also know that for retailers, if you put a lot of bag and box on your shelf in the retail space, you actually sell less wine. So if you put glass packed wine on the shelf, you'll sell more. So glass is really a brand in itself. It's that's why we've launched the glass hallmark, which stands for the inertness of glass, the recyclability, reusability of glass. And for more on that, you can get information on the Glass Hallmark website. But to you, Ellie, from your experience as a packaging designer, and as a French and wine expert in particular, would you agree that packaging can drive choice? Would you have other examples actually for us to share with us today?
Yeah, Adeline, you said one word, which is, I think, the most important word in our discussion, which is pleasure. Because consumption today, particularly in the fragrance industry and the wine industry and the spirit industry, has to be linked with pleasure. When you buy a champagne, in France, when you're invited to some people's house, you bring a bottle of champagne. Probably 8% out of 10 will do this. Some flowers, but a lot of people will bring champagne. And how do you choose this champagne bottle? Of course, maybe some experts will read about advices on the wine itself, etc. But it has to be a consistency between the quality of the wine, the champagne, and also all the rest, the image and the quality of the bottle, the quality of the pack, the outer pack, and all this, which in a way is also the voice. But all this brings to the question of also consistency between, again, what's inside and what's outside. I always like to use this metaphor of a dinner. If you go to a great restaurant, whether it's in France or in Germany or in Italy, what are the very important points that will make your dinner or your lunch a big pleasure? It's several things, and it begins by, when you read the menu, there's a poetic approach. You don't say, a piece
In
of
French.
meat in French, but it's the case. It's the case everywhere in the world. The sophisticated cuisine is not anymore, the battlefield of France. It's you have fantastic cuisine everywhere in the world now, but it begins by this poetic approach of saying why, how this things has been made, with what kind of components, etc. So there's this poetic approach to your brain. Then there's a visual. Now the chefs are putting a lot more emphasis on how does your dish look when someone is bringing it to the table. And then there's the smell, and then there's the food itself, the taste, etc. And then there's the service, as Michel was saying before, the experience. So all these elements are very important. And in a way, for packaging, it's the same. The thing is, everything has to be consistent. If you buy a fantastic bottle of spirit, the bottle is beautiful, but the spirit itself is very disappointing, then you will never buy again. So there's a question of consistency. A few years ago, in the fragrance industry, we work a lot in the fragrance industry and the beauty industry as well. It was this coming out of niche brands. And if you looked at niche brands 15 years ago, packaging was very, very simple. The reason why was a lot of constraints, because these niche brands, small companies, had limited probably money, investments capacity. And so they used very simple packaging. And this became a trend.
Yeah.
That maybe because fragrance was the most important element, maybe the fragrance design, the bottle design should be a bit more simple. And so I asked myself the question, how can you maybe look at it in a different way? By the way, if you look at it 15 years later, all the niche brands, have been growing a lot, have been bought by big groups, and this constraint has changed. But a few years ago, we were working on a great project, one of the project I loved the most in my career, which was this fragrance bottle for Cartier La Panthère. And I was asking myself, how can you look at this importance of fragrance in a different way? Not, another way than just making a very, very simplistic packaging. And so we tried a way to sculpt the juice itself, to sculpt the fragrance. We always sculpted the bottle, but could we sculpt the juice? Or same for a spirit, could we sculpt the spirit? And so we made a partnership with a fantastic glassmaker in France, and I came to them saying, okay, how could we sculpt the inside of a bottle? And so we found ways. It was like two years of studies, and then we, with Cartier and this industrial partner, this very talented manufacturer, we came up with this industrial solution to be able to sculpt the juice. And so we, in a way, considered the juice as a stone because it's Cartier, the jewelry maker. And so we found a way to enhance the juice and maybe improve the pleasure you have every day. Because the thing is with packaging, in fragrance design, fragrance bottle design, the thing is not only to have a nice image on advertising or to bring more desire to buy on a shelf, but it's also a day-to-day pleasure that you have because you're using these products every day. Maybe Spirit every week, or I don't know, but it's every day you have this contact with the product that you use, and this question of pleasure, consistency, of course, between inside and outside, but more importantly, how does this contribute to the pleasure, which will generate sales again?
Well, that's why the packaging needs to appeal to the senses, and we choose products not just on one sense, but using all our senses. But I just want to. I'm watching the time, and I just want to. I think we have time for just one last question, because it's on sustainability, and I would like to just come over to you, Michelle, because it's obviously at center stage today, sustainability issues. It's very important at political, social, economic level, and businesses are changing the way that they operate. It's also the consumers are demanding that as well. They want the industry to do more so that they can have guilt-free, if you like, enjoyment of products. So, um, uh, and I know brands are actually taking up the sustainability challenge. Just could you answer the question really? Is the need to have a brand differentiation to the packaging, is this sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, packaging, it's more important. It has more of an important role than ever, I think, because of sustainability. Brands lead change for a sustainable future. And as brand owners, sustainability is now at the heart of all business strategies. And Ulrich was mentioning it earlier. It is an integral part of the business model itself now. And that's where you can see innovation, design, all of this is actually within the framework of what the sustainability commitments are. It's not just an add-on. It's about, it is really an integral part. The design of products has changed, ingredients used, materials supplied, production processes, right, packaging, distribution. The sustainability goals are really driving the business model now and will continue to do so going forward. And I would say that in the broadest sense, both from sustainability within the broadest sense, from both the environmental, social, and economic point of view. And we can see innovation across the spectrum of materials. We're leading a project at the moment, an R&D project, looking at whether a digital watermarking technology, which is quite a disruptive technology, could actually be used on packaging, which would help in terms of intelligent sorting, basically, which would increase higher quality recyclate. Which then goes back into the loop, on the circular use of our packaging. So, and an example in glass is the continuous awareness and the focus and the importance on collection and recycling, the glass, the close the loop initiative that you have on the glass side. So we need packaging, and I sincerely hope everyone understands that, not just the role of it in terms of its functional use, but also the experience, the consumer experience, as it speaks to the consumer and tells the story, as we were saying earlier. And that in turn, of course, when we're looking at consumer empowerment and the green transition, that will tell that story, that will play a role for the consumer in that sense as well. Because we're all looking at our own footprint, if you like, and our own sustainability goals and how we can actually help to, what we can do about that. And of course, from a brand's point of view, brands are consumer centric, and that brand identity needs to, it needs to identify with those consumers who are taking steps in that direction. We need to meet their expectations.
I just see, because we are running short of time, but there's a question that's come in, and it's to you, Ulrich. So it's basically, how important is it for spirits companies and consumers to know that a glass bottle or a glass tumbler is produced respecting the environment? We produce eco crystal glass with an electric furnace and zero smoke emission into the atmosphere. Do you think it's an effective storytelling for companies' consumers?
Yeah, thanks. Absolutely. I think it depends. I think, I mean, generally it is important. I think, but again, to some brands or some consumers, it's probably more important than to others. And I think it's again finding the right fit to get this advanced technology into the market. And I think there you'd probably you try to face that in from the premium end, or weave it into those brands that already really stress their sustainability credentials in their brand story and in their brand identity. So I think that's also I think the key, how we in the spirits sector more broadly see the innovation on sustainability aspects in packaging moving forward. We think that sometimes it's suggested that functionality and safety on the one hand, and design and value and differentiation are two opposing ends, but I don't think that's the case. It's not either or. It's really and it's bringing these two together, and that's and this is a very good example. So I think it's really about moving both things forward. I think there are certain functional and safety aspects that will always be there, but again, it's about integrating as much as possible as we move forward, either recyclable content or these new production techniques that came up in the question here into the existing packaging range, and then fitting them to those products and brands where the consumer is most likely to seek them and understand them, and also is willing, in case it is a more expensive way of producing, to pay the premium for it.
Absolutely.
So I think we're very much looking at a very dynamic marketplace here, and it's also because of as I mentioned before, the diversity in spirits and the competition, that we see this playing out quite nicely in the coming years. I think we'll see a lot of progress, but we think it must be an open framework. We certainly all agree in the sector, and I think around this table and this call, on the objectives of sustainability moving forward and the targets. But I think then the pathway, that we will see very different solutions from your sector, Adeline, from the glass bottle producers, from our producers of spirits, and there'll be different combinations in terms of tying these things together and
Yep.
advancing on the road of sustainability. And I think that's the vision. We have an open innovation pathway with a common goal, rather than a very rigid and mandated or legislated pathway that only foresees certain solutions and cuts out a lot of others, including some we don't even know yet about. So we need to keep an open innovation pathway, because that's where also I think the brand stories can really unleash a very positive innovation loop, and bring consumers along to accept new and more sustainable
I,
solutions.
I also think we need to keep an open pathway for creative design as well as innovation. So, I mean, the Commission's own reference to design is that the design of a product is often, this is quoting from a Commission text, the design of a product is often the main reason that consumers choose it over others. Industrial design rights protect the appearance of a product, which results from attributes such as its shape, colors, or materials. Design is important for consumers who often choose a product based on how it looks. Well-designed products create an important competitive advantage for producers and companies that invest in design and tend to be more profitable and grow faster. I think we could all agree with that conclusion.
Absolutely.
So just at the panelists, I give you just 30 seconds, 20 seconds, if there's anything that you want to just finish this session with, because we're running out of time. Any last comments or
Yeah,
reaction?
I'd line, if I may. I think what you've said is very important, and more importantly, I think people are expecting from brands, especially premium brands, a lot of audacity. So they are open. Consumers are very open to innovation. I would say, if sustainability remains a constraint, we're going to, products being more and more poor in a way where I think we have to approach it as an opportunity, as a creative opportunity, and there are many ways to go. That's what I think is very important to brands, to designers, to developers, that if you take a constraint, an opportunity, then it becomes something strong, and consumers are very ready to that.
Absolutely. Ulrich, last word. Sorry, Michelle. The ladies last.
Okay, ladies last. Okay, very good. Yeah, no, I think really it's going to be very exciting next couple of years with the view to 2030. And I think the idea is that this is one element, design is one element, innovation is one element. But then again, if we zoom out, as we said before, there'll be so many other elements in the production chains that are happening, whether it's renewable sourcing, whether it's recycled content, whether it's also our joint project on including collection rates to 90% in the closed glass loop platform across Europe. So I think it's a joint effort, and again, yeah, brands and design and can play really a catalytic role in driving this transformation. And I think we would be happy to see that also from the institutional and legislator and regulator side that positive dynamic is understood. I think we just need to let some of these positive dynamics play their way. The train is going in the right direction there.
Michelle, I give you the last word.
Well, I think just, when we think about some of the words that we're just talking about, just in the concepts, innovation, flexibility, design, that's differentiation. And what we have to make sure is that on this path on innovation, flexibility, design, transformation, there are so many different ways that we will be able to do this, to achieve those goals in terms of 2030. And I think that we probably just need a framework to allow the innovators and the great thinkers and the people, as Ellie was saying right at the beginning, the people who have the ideas, to make sure that they flourish in that framework.
Thank you, Michelle. That's a perfect conclusion. So thank you so much to all of you to be on the panel today. So Ellie, Ulrich, Michelle, it was great having you. Just to remind you that we are going to make this study from the University of Parma available, and we'll be sending it out to all the audience that are sort of joining us today. And so watch out for the next Q&A. And tell us any comments, suggestions you have for topics to deal with in sessions like this in the future. Make sure you follow us on LinkedIn and the Hallmark website. And well, see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.